You have found yourself on another episode of Locked On Bulls. On today's episode, we'll be discussing the Bulls hiring a new player development coach and what that could mean for the young players on this team. We'll also talk about KD staying with the Nets, how that affects the Eastern Conference, and then getting into how the new CBA will not only affect what we just saw happen with KD and the Nets, but how the Bulls build their team in the future. We'll get into all that and more on today's Locked On Bulls.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily podcast on the Chicago Bulls, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Bulls. Locked On Bulls, a member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. That's Pat, the designer, host and creator of the Windy City Breeze. I'm Haize, host and creator of Chicago Bulls Central. Brother, the Bulls, a lot's been made this summer once we found out that the Chicago Bulls did not even have a shooting coach. Now, they probably have assistant coaches that help with that, but they have hired a new head of player development coach. What do you think this means for the Chicago Bulls that they now have somebody in the building in place that is kind of just focused on player development? We have quite a few players that could benefit from having a shooting coach or a player development coach. We've got a lot of players that have a lot of raw talent but can't shoot the dang ball. The new coach, he was an assistant on the Windy City Bulls. His name is Martin Rannick. He played for Iowa State in college. He played all 4 years, had a pretty solid season there. He's also played professionally in Spain and Italy. What do you think about it?
I mean, I'd feel like it was a bigger deal, right, if like our players weren't developing. Yeah. But we've seen multiple players develop under Billy Donovan. I think we've seen the growth of Marko Simonovic.
Where have we seen the growth of Marko Simonovic? Where have we seen it? Where have we seen it?
He don't look like.
I'm just messing with you.
I mean, like, come on now. Come on now. Listen, whether it happens on the NBA court or not is different, but we've definitely seen growth in his game. We've seen growth in him. We've seen the growth of Ayo Dosunmu. I think being, especially last season, right, being able to come in and evolve his game throughout the season. So if players weren't developing under Billy Donovan, I'd probably feel like, yeah, this should have been done. But I mean, also Billy Donovan has put together a good staff and does really well with young players.
That's why they brought him in.
Yeah, for sure. And so I think that's something to really, look at and say, okay, this is just an asset to what we already have on top of that. So I like the fact that the Bulls went out and did this. And it just, I guess, right, the thing is it keeps guys during the season maybe developing a little bit better. And I think that's what the Bulls probably could have improved on, because you saw during the season, there weren't a lot of guys outside of Ayo who were able to change their games enough to get ready for the load that they had to deal with when players started going down due to injury. That's really the biggest change that I see with it. Because outside of that, right, guys are going to work with their guys in the offseason, right? Zach's going to go work with Chris Brickley. He's going to work like that during the offseason. He's working with his guys right now. Video dropped yesterday on him working on mid-range post moves. They're going to stick with their main guys.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with that, the way that I look at it is this Chicago Bulls team is going to be a team that maybe for the next few years continues to get younger. Right? You have a Dalen Terry in it. You have Ayo Dosunmu. You have Kobe White still, who I think sometimes we think Kobe's older than what he is. We have Patrick Williams, who is about to turn 21 if he hasn't already. Like, these are young players that if you have a coach that is just there for development, that while the team are going to do, you said it before, during the season is mainly just working on team drills, things, aspects of the team. But now that if you have a coach in there and his role is to help development, you can pull a Dalen Terry to the side outside of the team drills and say, hey, man, what I want you to do is I want you to shoot 100 mid-range shots right here, and I'm going to play defense on you while you shoot them. Things like that. Tuck that elbow in. Little thing. And there's things that other assistant coaches and Billy Donovan are probably doing as well, but now you have somebody who's specialized and focused in that. They can pull that player to the side and help them do a little bit more of those things over the course of the end season. Like you said, most of the development happens off season as well. When they work on specific things of the game, that's going to mostly happen during the offseason, but being able to have somebody there in the Bulls locker room who's, worked for the Windy City Bulls before, so who's familiar with the city, familiar with the system, it makes sense. But, in talking about, things that are done off season. We did find out yesterday as well. Patrick Williams has been working with Drew Hanlon, who's worked with Zach LaVine, Joel Embiid, Bradley Beal, Jason Tatum, and RJ Barrett, to name a few. What do you think about that aspect? Patrick Williams working with, and you know what? Before we said, it's funny, we always hear about these trainers and they only ever list the success stories. You know, every trainer has worked with a couple of players that just have not worked out. Like, why don't we hear them as well? Like, why don't you list them? But go ahead.
Hey, bro, listen. It cracks me up, right? Because it's all based on the personal player as well, right? So, like, it's based on the work that person puts in. Nobody talks about when Chandler Hutchinson goes and works out with them much. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like much just give up on their NBA career. It's like, hey, what happened to that guy? Well, he's still working. He's just not that good. But I look at that as it's good to see the offseason as serious as he possibly can. And it seems like I'd say this, right? To me, this is the effect that DeMar has had on these guys. I don't think, and maybe we just weren't hearing about it before because the Bulls weren't as good, but I don't think that we've heard about this many guys working with this many trainers this far into the offseason outside of Zach LaVine.
Yeah, you have it. I mean, also, we had a lot of young players that sucked for a long time. So, like, it almost
we didn't care.
Because I tell you what, if you were Chris Dunn's offensive trainer, would you want that to be said anywhere? I'd be like, hey, man, listen, don't bring my name up. Don't bring my name up.
Hey, man, he had 3 20-point games in a row.
That is hilarious.
You know what I mean?
That is hilarious.
By the way,
man.
Chris Dunn should be in the NBA.
Chris Dunn, the fact that he's still Chris Dunn could lead the league in steals easily.
Bro, how's he not in the league? He literally played what? Like 20 games last year. He still averaged a steal and a half a game.
I mean, hey, listen, he has that one skill. And defensively, I think his defense did fall off a little bit. But there was one point in time where, like, the Bulls plus minus defensively with Chris Dunn on the floor was wild.
Yeah.
But the offensive side of it took such a leap that it was just I honestly think Chris Dunn right now, he's 28 years old. Don't be surprised if Chris Dunn may be one of those players that leaves the league and comes back. And all of a sudden at like 30, 31 years old, he's just this specialist defender off the bench that just teams just love. So
yeah, he's going to end up on he'll end up on Miami. Right? He'll end up on like the Heat, and it'll be like, what's he do? He just defends. Can he do anything else? We don't want him to do anything else.
Keep in mind, Chris Dunn does have that AK wingspan. He's 6'3" with a 6'9" wingspan.
Are you predicting a Chris Dunn return to Chicago?
Never.
Is that what you're predicting there, brother?
Listen.
Is that what you...
If AK were to go out and sign Chris Dunn, just fire him. Like, it's over. Like, Bulls fans be lying. There's no coming back from that.
Just fire him.
Just fire
Everything
him.
he's done is good is gone out the window.
It's gone. If he re-signs Chris Dunn or brings back Chandler Hutchinson, it's over. Like, it's just you just got to write it home.
Hey, bro. Hey, just to cap off all the offseason content that we got here. I mean, listen, if we go on offseason content, we might as well go all the way in on this, right? Don't know if you saw this, but this dropped 10 hours ago on, what was that, on Instagram? Lonzo Ball shot a free throw today.
He shot a free throw.
How you feeling about that, man? Lonzo on the free throw game, baby.
It was the best free throw ever in history. Let's just be clear here. It was the best free throw ever done in history. But listen, it doesn't matter. If he's not a dunk now, if we will see Lonzo Ball do like a windmill 360 dunk, I don't care if the rim's only 7 feet. I'm going crazy for that. Cause can we see him land on his knee? Like, that's the best highlight we can see from Lonzo Ball right now. Just him jumping like off a curb and just landing on his knee and just being able to just walk off afterwards. Like that's what
the thing that's hilarious about it is, first off, Bulls fans took it to the umpteenth degree. It was like, oh, he's good. He's good to start the season. I was like, what did we see? But then on top of that, is he at a birthday party?
Bro,
I was very confused because it was like balloons in the back, and it was like, who brought him a basketball? Did he just say, hey, start filming, watch this? Ben Simmons, and just put one in there?
That is hilarious, bro. You know, that's the next thing we're going to see, because Ben Simmons got cleared for 3-on-3 workouts. We're going to see Ben Simmons like draining like 5 threes in a row in some random gym.
We're going to see Ben Simmons in the big three. That's what we're going to see Ben Simmons. Don't get me started on Ben Simmons.
That's disrespectful, brother. That is disrespectful.
Ben Simmons, bro. Ben Simmons is a disrespect to the NBA as a whole. And the reason we're going to talk about Pat Beverly later.
Oh, wow. Dang. All right. This usually me who fires shots. Pat just fired some shots off there.
I got big shots for Ben Simmons, and I ain't got a problem saying it on the podcast.
Well, all right. So before we get into the big shots for Ben Simmons, next up we'll talk about his teammate Kevin Durant and what him staying in Brooklyn could mean for the Eastern Conference as a whole. But first, got to talk to you guys with a message from NHTSA. You're hanging out with some friends and putting back a few drinks. A few becomes a few too many. As the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you're thinking, I'm going to call for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. You can make it home okay. It's no big deal. What are the odds of you get pulled over? Or even so, what's the worst that can happen? Your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you lose your job, you total your car, or you kill someone. Everyone knows about the risk of drunk driving. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. That's a heck of a message. Let's go ahead and move on. KD has rescinded his trade request. He's now apparently staying with the Brooklyn Nets. A report even came out yesterday that he is now reinvested in the Nets' future. Not just he didn't just put the trade aside to the trade request to the side, brother. He's invested in the Nets' future. You know, only $100-some million would say that he should be invested in it regardless. But what do you think of it, Pat?
I mean, listen, it reshapes the landscape of the Eastern Conference, right? But also at the same time, do I feel like they're going to be on the court together enough to make it work? I can't say that yet either. It's good to see KD back in the building, but what is that team going to look like? I mean, on paper, right? That team looks, when you look at that team on paper, you're like, this is the Eastern Conference Finals team. Because even the guys that they added just to be role players on that team are really good players. But it's also comes into, okay, what is Steve Nash? What is what is Kyrie gonna do? You know, is he, as you say, is he gonna turn into Obi-Wan on us? Right. So it's I'm glad that all of the KD saga mess is over, just so we can kind of stop talking about it. Mm-hmm. I still feel like everything's up in the air with that team as a whole, right? Like, and the thing you have to take into account the most to me is, while, yeah, these guys can go out there and hoop and just be great, when you don't want to be somewhere, you usually don't end up being at your best. Even if you're playing really well, you usually don't end up playing your best basketball because you're unhappy in that situation.
Yeah. The KD thing is such a weird thing to really judge. He's such a prima donna, bro. I don't know, right? Like, this thing could work. We could very well see a situation in which, because Kyrie can play more off the ball with Ben Simmons being there, like you said, even the players that they got in the trade with Ben Simmons really can help that roster. KD, if he's locked in, that could be a dangerous team to look out for in the Eastern Conference. But it's everything else outside of basketball that you can't bet on with that team. Kyrie Irving is one sage session away from like completely just throwing off all his earthly belongings and moving to Wakanda, and that be it. Like, that's literally what Kyrie Irving could do at any point in time.
Wakanda, Illinois, he means, not
for example, the All-Star game is in Utah, right? You can't tell me that you can't. Kyrie could be out there in Utah, see the mountains, and say, you know what? I'm going to go live there, and nobody would second guess it.
It wouldn't surprise me. It'd actually be par for the course. And I think the thing that you have to look at, and even if Kyrie, here's the thing: if he plays, if they all play, you have to view them as a deadly team. Yeah. But that's the biggest question, right? Like, look at their roster right now: TJ Warren, Ben Simmons, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, all guys that have missed major time throughout the season. Now, Kevin Durant more so due to injury than anything else, but guys that have missed major time during the season is for the guys that are in your starting lineup, possibly?
You think TJ Warren's going to be a starter?
I don't know what that roster is going to be, bro. I ain't going to lie to you. I don't know who's going to start and who's not. I mean, you got TJ Warren, Cam Thomas, Ben Simmons, Royce O'Neal, Patty Mills, Kyrie, Joe Harris, Blake Griffin is still there technically, Kevin Durant, Seth Curry, Nick Claxton, LaMarcus Jones. I don't know who's starting, bro.
Joe Harris, who only did play 14 games last season, but started all 14 of those games. If he's healthy, you got to kind of think that he may get inserted back in there as a starter. He's such a good starter to have when you have a bunch of players that demand the ball. But you can say the same thing about TJ Warren, honestly, too. Yeah. So let me not act like that's exclusive to Joe Harris. But I don't know, bro. Like I like their roster. Like this, looking at their roster, this roster is going to be a roster that, as long as everybody's healthy and available, people are going to kill it with on 2K. They're going to kill it with on 2K. You don't want to play this team online, but it's the reality. We got to play in real life. And in real life, like I said, there's so many question marks here that I'm not going to say I'm not, they don't worry me, because absolutely any team with KD and Kyrie should worry you, especially if you're in their same conference. But as a team, I look at it and say, hey, listen, there's a situation in here that there's some permutations that can happen that, not to say they're not a non-factor, but they can vary. What were they, the 7th seed last year? They can wind up right back at being the 7th seed.
7th and 8th, they were low. I think the biggest question around them, right, especially, let's say they're 100% healthy going down the stretch, right? Normal season. Let's not say 100%. A normal season. Everybody plays a normal season, like no drama.
So 65 to 70 games.
They just play basketball, right? Yeah. Then the question becomes, is Steve Nash a good enough coach to help this team win?
The question that
because his system is terrible.
It's hard for me. Okay, but it was his first year as a head coach. So just like, I mean, Jason Kidd looked terrible at his first stop at being a head coach. He looked a little bit better after that.
Milwaukee? What was his first stop? Or was New York his first stop?
No, I think it was Milwaukee was his first stop. He looked terrible in Milwaukee coaching that team.
But he still was, if I'm not mistaken, right? Weren't they still 500 or close to 500? I don't remember Jason Kidd's first year coaching either. But I feel like he got them at least to a point where they were like,
oh no, Brooklyn was his first stop, so I do take that back. So you were correct.
He got traded. He got traded.
Yeah, he got traded. A coach got traded. Yeah. So 44 wins his first season in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
41 wins his first season in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
33 the season after that. They finished 5th in the Central, and then 42 second in the Central after that. Then he got fired.
Yeah, and listen, he was. I was gonna say Vinny Del Negro. We broke down Vinny numbers. Vinny actually decent. He was a mid-level coach, right? He wasn't great. He wasn't terrible, but all his ideas didn't work his first go round. Steve Nash did not look good, and the thing for me, when you look as inept as the Brooklyn Nets looked in the playoffs, it's not just on the head coach. When I say Steve Nash, to me, it's the entire coaching staff, because you got Mike D'Antoni on that staff. You've got guys on that staff that have coached as a head coach in the NBA before, and there was no system.
This is true.
There was no option for Kevin Durant to go to. There was no, and listen, right? Like all the games they won during the season, they were cooking during the season when they were playing together. Could have been a continuity thing. Seth Curry wasn't healthy. All that absolutely plays into it. But at the end of the day, right, my biggest question is when the playoffs come around and you have to have good coaching to put you in a position to win, right? Are you going to be able to get the job done? And I don't know if Steve Nash is that guy. Now, maybe, right, another year in the NBA, all of a sudden he's got a whole new system. Everything changes. Could be different. But that's the question on the table for me.
And it's a valid question to have. I think that when it comes to Steve Nash's coaching, let's wait and see. Let's see if he improves any. If he listens to his assistant, I think when you have a rookie head coach, you have to surround them with veteran assistants. Now, I don't know. I don't follow the Brooklyn Nets close enough to know who their assistants are. I don't give a damn. So we'll see. But like I've said before, Brooklyn doesn't scare me. Like, there's a lot of reasons why. Like, they could, right? We can see them fight. Something just clicks, and by the midway through the season, we're like, hey man, this Brooklyn team is different. They scary. But I got to see it first, bro. I lived in the show me state for too long. I got to see it. You got to show me. Because as of right now, they're a great team on paper. But how many paper champions have actually won an NBA title?
Miami Heat. Chicago.
They didn't in their first year, though.
Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, okay, those two. And the Warriors.
Spurs. Pretty good team on paper.
Well, no, but they won a title first for us to realize how good they were.
Hey, listen.
So there was something that was proven in that.
The Spurs got forgotten every season, and then you would look up and you'd be like, when they get 65 wins? You'd be looking at Kobe.
Was there a 6-year stretch where they won the title every other year, like for a while there?
Yeah. You'd be looking at Kobe. You'd be looking at Karl Malone. You'd be looking at all these muds in the Western Conference, and then you just look up and you'd be like, when the heck they get 50?
Because the Spurs just went about their business, bro. They didn't have any super big personality. Like the Spurs did not have one marketable personality on their team.
Oh man, dog! Did you ever see them Tim Duncan commercials, bro?
Bro, terrible.
Cringy.
Terrible. All right, let's go ahead.
Oh, man.
Go ahead, brother.
Let's get into this final topic, man. We're going to break down kind of Pat Bev and KD going back and forth at it and how that CBA could, talking about the CBA and how that could affect what the Bulls window is going on here. But first, we got to tell you about BetOnline. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find your favorite sport and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. You can find reviews and news from every league, including MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They've got you covered. Head to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, it's where the game starts.
All right, brother. Last topic of the day. So, partially because of what's going on with Ben Simmons and matter of fact, we should just rename the Brooklyn Nets the CBAs. Because there's going to be a lot of changes that come to the CBA because of things that have happened with players on the Brooklyn Nets in the next couple of years, brother.
Oh yeah.
And how that new CBA, right? So we saw the Brooklyn Nets ownership fight against the player empowerment movement and how they handled the KD, just basically saying, "Hey, we heard that you want to be traded. We're gonna wait and trade you to a team that we feel is going to give us the best and most assets that we need. Forget your list. We see your list." We don't give a damn about your list. That's what the Brooklyn Nets said. But then you also have a player in Ben Simmons who, had to go through arbitration. He did end up winning the settlement with the Philadelphia 76ers about being out because of mental health. So don't be surprised if there are some mental health things written in the next CBA, as more professional sports do take mental health more seriously. But also, new TV deal coming. There's going to be a lot of things in this new CBA that are going to have to be worked and hammered out. Do not be surprised if a lockout does come as they fight over some of these things. How do you think this new CBA is going to shake down, brother?
I think there's going to be some issues with it. You know what I'm saying? Because the players aren't going to want to move, and you have to think about what just happened. You just told Kevin Durant no. That hasn't happened in a very, very long time, right? Pat Bev coming out with the tweet talking about it's not good for business. These owners can't wait to get a new deal. All we're doing is hurting the future. Good day, blessings, gang. Absolutely right. Guess what? When you got guys like Kevin Durant that it just in the middle of a $100 million deal say, yeah, I'm finna get up out of here. When you've got guys like Ben Simmons who just in the middle of a $100 million deal say, yeah, I'm gonna get up out of $200 million deal for Ben Simmons, right? I'm gonna get up out of here. I'll see y'all later. I'm done. Yeah, I mean, like it's not good for business. Yeah. I don't see it. I don't see them getting a deal done. I don't see them making a move in the right direction.
It's going to be a lockout. I really don't think there's so much that has to be hammered out that are new precedents being set, right? Yeah. The ownership fighting against the player empowerment movement, trying to figure out something to do when players ask for trades early in their contract, the mental health aspect of it, working out. We already see almost every time there's a huge increase in TV contract money, there's a lockout anyway. So when you throw in those other things on top of that, unless they're really preparing for it and really doing their due diligence right now, I see when they come to the negotiating table, it's going to be a minute. So do not be surprised. Is the CB up at the end of this season or is it at the end of next season?
2023, 2024.
Okay. Do not be surprised if we don't get a season starting until Christmas again.
How do you think that affects? Do you feel like? Because I will say this about the NBA, right? Like, I do think we're heading towards a lockout, but the NBA usually doesn't let that linger into like we're starting half a season. You know what I'm saying? How do you think that will affect a Bulls window at the end of this? I mean, I think we're heading there.
At the end of it, I think it actually helps because with the Bulls, the increase in TV money is going to help every team. But when you're in a position like the Bulls to where you have so many young players, Iowa's going to have an extension by then. P. Will's going to have an extension by then. Dalen Terry won't. Lonzo will still be under contract. We'll have an option on Alex Caruso's deal by then. DeMar, Vooch, we'll see what happens with them. But when you have a team with that many players that are either going to be needing to be extended or extended by then, that increase in salary cap is going to help. That free agency is going that may be what the Bulls are waiting for to really make their big splash move in free agency. I hope not, but we'll see. Especially in a team that tries to avoid the luxury tax. That probably is when they're going to go hard at it. But and
I'm sure there'll be some new disgruntled superstar by then.
That too, yeah, for sure. But I think also like that keep in mind an increase in the salary cap. The having more spending money, a shortened season for some of the players that do suffer from injury concerns, it may all work out for the Chicago Bulls in that sense, brother.
I mean, honestly, that's not it's not a bad point. I mean, maybe we need to head toward the lockout. Oh God, can you imagine extended offseason content, bro? And when there's no basketball to talk about.
Listen, we stay going 5 days a week for you guys because listen, at this point, but I'm telling you, if there's a lockout offseason, there's no way in hell. With today's update, there's been no CBA that's been agreed to. Yeah.
Hey, we're going to be on this mother talk about the 90s Bulls in here again.
Oh, yeah. Hey, let's debate. You know what? We'll do a series with every other Locked On team debating our best team against their best team in history and why we'd sweep all of them.
Of course you come up with the best idea you've had at the end of all the offseason content. Hey, it's also tough though because it's just like most of the teams are just gonna have to agree because it's like our team is Michael Jordan. Oh well.
And by the way, most of their best teams, our teams beat. Our teams beat.
You know what I mean? Who's your best team? Karl Malone, John Stockton. We know how that.
Oh, we beat them
twice.
Patrick Ewing, we beat them. Like we kept y'all from getting the title.
Bro. That's a whole different situation. Let's not get Nick slander started up in here. But yeah,
it's always the time for Nick slander.
There's always time for Nick slander. At the end of the day, right, I think that Pat Beverly is spot on in his assessment of it. I get the whole, KD dropping the blame KD tweet and stuff like that. But he's not wrong. This is going to affect how ownership and teams move, and you're going to see contracts given out very different moving forward. Kyrie Irving, guys like that, their teams are going to give contracts out very differently, and I think we're probably heading to a point where you will see a lot more player movement because contracts will become a lot shorter.
That's a fact. Hey, well, we'll see. We'll be here to cover it, that's for sure. And as we prepare to go into the lockout season, pray for us and off-season content is all I'm going to say. Pat, go ahead and take us home, brother.
Hey, man, follow me on everything at Pat the Designer. You can follow us both on everything at Locked On Bulls. Appreciate y'all for showing love, man.
You can follow me at CEO Haize at CEO Haize. Thank you for listening to another episode of Locked On Bulls and making us your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, go and check on Locked On NBA, where the Locked On experts break down all the latest news, rumors, and developments going on in the NBA in 30 minutes or less. They can be found wherever you get your podcasts. For Pat the Designer, I'm Haize. This is Locked On Bulls, and we out.
Ciao.